flip.
We got to build a robot in 20 hours, okay? The robot's got to shoot projectiles and breathe flame.
In the quiet glow of a Los Angeles apartment, a young boy sat hunched over a scatter of wires and circuit boards, his tiny hands shaking slightly as he attempted to bring life to a machine no bigger than a toaster. Outside, kids played tag. Inside, something else was taking shape. At just 5 years old, Grant Imahara wasn't building toys. He was building future. Grant Imahara was born on October 23, 1970, in Los Angeles, California, into a world that didn't always make room for dreamers. His mother, Carolyn, a determined Japanese-American woman, shouldered life's burdens alone, working grueling 12-hour shifts at an accounting firm and attending business classes at night. She didn't have much, but what she did have, she poured into her only child. They lived modestly in a cramped two-bedroom apartment. Money was tight. Vacations didn't exist. New toys were rare. But Carolyn was crafting something far greater than fleeting comforts. Where other kids' homes were cluttered with plastic race cars and action figures, Grant's was filled with science kits, electronic parts, and battered copies of popular mechanics. The dining table wasn't for dinner. It was a command center for experiments. Carolyn made sacrifices most people wouldn't have dared. When offered a higher-paying job in San Francisco, she turned it down. Not because she didn't want, but because she believed Los Angeles had better schools for her son. His future mattered more than her present, and it showed early. At just 5 years old, Grant started dismantling everything inside: radio, clocks, telephone. In 1 year alone, he took apart 38 appliances, not out of mystery, pure electric curiosity. He memorized every screw and wire, never writing anything down. It was as if his young mind could see the invisible threads that made machines hum. There were dangers, too. At 6, while fiddling with an old radio, Grant suffered a massive electric shock. His heart momentarily stopped. Terrified, he didn't tell his mother. He feared she'd take his tools away. That stubborn, relentless need to build would become the defining trait of his life. His world changed forever in 1977, when 7-year-old Grant sat in a dark theater and watched Star Wars for the first time. For 2 straight hours, he barely moved. Afterwards, he spoke only in robot beeps. He became obsessed with R2-D2. That summer, he skipped 17 days of school, scavenging parts from dumpsters to build his own droid. By August, he had over 600 parts and pages of blueprints. He slept under a blanket with a flashlight, poring over college engineering manuals he barely understood, but refused to put down. Even as a child, Grant Imahara wasn't playing with machines. He was communing with them. At just 5 years old, while other kids were learning to ride bikes or trading baseball cards, Grant Imahara was dismantling the world around him, one appliance at a time. He wasn't interested in what something did. He wanted to know how it worked. Radios, toasters, alarm clocks, even the family microwave fell victim to his tiny, determined hand. In 1 whirlwind year, he disassembled 38 appliances. What made it remarkable wasn't just the sheer number, but that he could put many of them back together, often working better than before. He never wrote anything down. Every screw, every wire, every circuit was mapped inside his head like a living blueprint. His mind didn't just process information, it memorized systems. Carolyn, his mother, quickly realized she wasn't raising an ordinary child. She stopped buying toys altogether and instead brought home science kits, spare parts, and broken electronics for him to explore. But with curiosity came risk. One evening, at the age of 6, Grant decided to tinker with an old, battered radio. As he reached inside the live circuitry, a jolt of electricity shot through his body, so powerful it stopped his heart momentarily. His small body convulsed and dropped, but somehow he revived. And when it was over, he picked himself up, shook it off, and kept the incident to himself. He feared more than the shock itself. He feared losing his tool. That was the essence of Grant, a fearless inventor in miniature form, willing to teeter on the edge of danger if it meant unlocking a new discovery. Even at that tender age, he was already navigating the delicate line between youthful recklessness and a spark of genius that would one day set the world alight. Then, in May 1977, everything changed. He saw Star Wars, and in that dark theater, for 2 straight hours, he didn't blink. Afterward, he didn't speak English, only robot beeps. He skipped 17 days of school that summer, scavenging in dumpsters, building a homemade R2-D2 out of scrap metal and dreamed. By August, he had over 600 parts. He slept under a blanket with a flashlight, reading college-level manual. This wasn't play, it was purpose. By high school, Grant was light years ahead. He rewired the school's PA system to play the Star Wars theme. He was banned from science fairs because judges didn't believe his robots were real. He had already built 13 of them before most kids had passed geometry. He spent his lunch hours soldering circuit boards and hiding in science closets, escaping the ordinary. Grant Imahara's entry into the University of Southern California was, to most, a golden ticket, a full scholarship to study electrical engineering at one of the nation's top programs. But for Grant, it quickly became a maze of endless equations and complex formulas that left him feeling disconnected from the wonder that first made him fall in love with machines. By 1992, after years of lectures and lab reports, the spark that once drove him was flickering. In a bold move, he considered walking away from engineering altogether, chase another dream that had always lingered in the back of his mind: screenwriting. The thought of combining storytelling with his love for technology was intoxicating. He even approached USC's prestigious School of Cinematic Arts about switching majors, only to be told it wasn't possible. It seemed like a dead end. Then, fate stepped in. Grant crossed paths with Tomlinson Holman, the legendary sound engineer behind Lucasfilm's THX sound system, a man whose name was printed on the opening credits of the very films that had once changed Grant's life. Starstruck but determined, Grant made a simple, life-altering offer. "I'll work for you for free." Holman agreed, and just like that, Grant became the lowest man on the totem pole, filing papers, organizing technical manuals, cleaning dusty labs filled with decades of sound equipment. But inside that chaos, Grant rediscovered his passion. Watching Holman blur the lines between engineering and art, seeing how sound and story merged through technology, reignited something in him. In those unglamorous hours of grunt work, Grant found what he'd been missing: the realization that engineering wasn't just math and machines, it was a tool to create magic. That one act of humility reconnected him to his passion. He saw how storytelling and science could live together. That realization changed everything. Upon graduation, Grant joined Lucasfilm's THX division, testing audio equipment to meet THX standard. He would crawl inside speakers, map vibrations, and push devices to their limits. His obsession with detail was almost sacred. But his true calling came in 1996, when he transferred to Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, Lucasfilm's visual effects powerhouse. There, among creative titans, Grant found his tribe. He wasn't just building movie props, he was breathing life into machines. He worked on Star Wars, Episodes 1 through 3, the Matrix sequel, Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and more. His edge, while others came from mechanical or artistic background, Grant was the only one with a brain wired for system, circuit, motor, logic boards, magic. His work with R2-D2 became legendary. Initially asked to repair old units, he ended up rebuilding the droid from scratch for the Phantom Menace. He upgraded the motors with parts from electric wheelchair. He rewired the entire system, replaced halogen lights with custom LEDs, and made R2 faster, more reliable, and finally, camera ready. By Attack of the Clones, he was responsible for all 12 R2 units. He wasn't just behind the scenes anymore. He operated R2 on set. He directed Anthony Daniels in the C-3PO suit. Lucasfilm trusted him with the droid's soul. He became one of only 3 people in the U.S. authorized to operate R2-D2 at live events. But Grant wasn't just a Star Wars fan. He was an inventor. He created his own champion robot, Deadblow, for BattleBots, and even wrote a book, Bot, about building combat robots. He built the Energizer Bunny's animatronics from scratch, stuffing each one with 44 AA batteries and 8-bit chip. He operated the bunnies himself during commercials. This was a man who turned science into spectacle. In 2005, everything changed again. MythBusters needed a new build team member. Enter Grant Imahara. He joined Carrie Byron and Tori Bellisi as the trio responsible for designing experiments to test urban legends, myths, and impossible stunts. For 9 years and over 200 episodes, Grant brought his signature calm genius to chaotic challenges. From testing explosions to crafting intricate rigs, he filled the technical void between Tori's builds and Carrie's artistic flair. He wasn't just a geek, He was the geek who made it cool to be curious. Working at MythBusters wasn't just about building quirky contraptions and blowing things up. It was often a dangerous, unpredictable, and downright disgusting job. And no one knew that better than Grant Imahara. While his calm, collected demeanor on camera made the wildest experiments look effortless, behind the scenes, he faced moments that tested even his steely nerves. One of the most infamously revolting experiences came during an episode testing the myth that earwax could be used to make candy, as inspired by the film Shrek. The crew obtained a jar of medically harvested earwax, not from one person, but from hundreds of patients. When Grant was assigned the unenviable job of heating it up, he did so with the same precision he brought to robotics. The moment the wax melted, an overpowering, sour stench filled the room. So vile, it clung to the wall. Grant gagged uncontrollably, eyes watering, until he physically couldn't stay. He bolted off the set, later calling it the worst, most nauseating thing I've ever done in my entire life. And this was a man who had literally swum with sharks for science. But it wasn't just stomach-churning moments and harmless pranks on MythBusters. The show was notorious for blurring the line between controlled experiment and real danger. And no one understood that better than Grant Imahara. Though he wore a constant calmness on screen, Grant often found himself in situations where a single mistake could have meant disaster. One of the most harrowing moments of his MythBusters career came during the filming of an episode dedicated to testing the myth of the Chinese flying guillotine, a bladed, circular weapon from ancient legends said to decapitate enemies from a distance. Tasked with designing and operating the weapon, Grant approached the build like he did everything else, with precision, caution, and just a dash of boyish excitement. The device looked like something ripped from a nightmare. Multiple razor-sharp blades attached to a spring-loaded ring designed to snap shut at lightning speed. While prepping the rig for a demonstration, something went wrong. The trigger mechanism misfired unexpectedly, sending the deadly weapon hurtling toward Grant's chest. In an instant, the spinning blades slashed cleanly through his shirt, missing his stomach by what Grant would later describe as millimeters. The crew rushed to him, expecting the worst. Miraculously, aside from a shredded shirt and a shaken heart, he was unharmed. But it was a sobering moment for a man known for keeping his cool under pressure. From that day forward, Grant never approached a dangerous build without a thick, reinforced leather apron and layered safety precautions. It wasn't superstition, it was survival. The incident became an unspoken legend within the MythBusters workshop, a reminder that while the myths they tested might have been fictional, the risks were terrifyingly real. In truth, MythBusters was far from a cushy TV gig. Over the years, the team endured everything from minor injuries to explosive close calls. There were broken bones, near drownings, misfired projectiles, and chemical accidents. Grant, ever the professional, rarely flinched. He approached every episode, whether it involved flying guillotines or high-speed car stunts, with a quiet bravery and relentless curiosity. For Grant, the danger was never the point. It was the challenge, the unknown, the pursuit of finding truth where others only saw impossibility. And even with the scars and scares, he wouldn't have traded it for anything. But Grant kept returning to what he loved most, robots. He built a skeleton sidekick for The Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson, became a judge on BattleBots, and in 2018 joined Disney Imagineering to work on a project that would break new ground. Stickman, a humanoid robot that could flip through the air. Stickman was the beginning. Grant helped create Stuntronics, robots capable of performing high-flying stunts, now seen flipping through the air at Disney parks around the world. He had helped robots fly and land, but his most touching invention came in 2020. After watching The Mandalorian, Grant fell in love with Baby Yoda. He didn't want to sell it. He didn't want to profit from it. He built a fully animatronic Baby Yoda from scratch to bring joy to Children's Hospital. He programmed, 3D printed the part, installed motor, and worked with artist Lauren Markland to implant each tiny hair with a needle. It took months. It was a labor of love. I want him to be a happiness maker, Grant said. But behind the joy, something deadly was growing inside his head. In early July 2020, Grant started complaining of headache. Doctors thought they were migraine. On July 11th, he was having dinner with his fiancée, Jennifer Newman, when he suddenly felt dizzy. His legs went numb. He slumped over. By the time paramedics arrived, He was unresponsive. Doctors discovered a ruptured brain aneurysm. Emergency surgery was done that night. Grant survived, never woke up. A second operation followed. Still no improvement. Then a third. But the MRI confirmed the worst. The brain damage was irreversible. On July 13, 2020, at just 49 years old, Grant Imahara's life support was removed. The world lost a life, a creator, a friend. His death sent shockwaves through the science and entertainment communities. Adam Savage, his MythBusters co-host and friend, wrote, "I'm at a loss." Grant was a brilliant engineer, artist, and performer. But most of all, he was just such a generous, easygoing, and gentle person. "I'll miss my friend." His fiancée, Jennifer, wrote, "I lost a part of my heart and soul today. He was so generous and kind, so endlessly sweet, and so loved." But Grant's story doesn't end there. On what would have been his 50th birthday, October 23, 2020, his family and friends launched the Grant Imahara STEAM Foundation, a nonprofit devoted to mentoring students in science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. The foundation gives scholarships, supports internships, and continues Grant's mission of helping young minds dream bigger. His mother, Carolyn, said, "There are many students like my son who need the balance of the technical and the creative. That's what STEAM is about." I'm so proud of what Grant accomplished, but even more proud of the young people he inspired. In August 2021, over 80 props Grant built for MythBusters were auctioned to support the foundation. Meanwhile, the Best Design Award in BattleBots was renamed the Grant Imahara Award for Best Design. Reruns of MythBusters still air. His work still plays in theater. His baby Yoda still lives. His robots still move. Most of all, his spirit moves us. Grant Imahara never wanted to be James Bond. He wanted to be Q, the quiet genius behind the gadgets, man behind the curtain, holding brilliance in silence. And now, he is immortal. Not because he was on TV, but because he made people believe that imagination, kindness, and hard work could change the world.